Please make our show. May the sacred presence of him who said he would abide in his teaching be our guide. May we follow his glorious example and tread with unfaltering step this noble path until we too shall attain enlightenment. All Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, maha prajna paramita. So good evening again, everyone. And this is our 8th and last class in our Jukai preparation precept discussion series. So tonight, this is where I think we're headed, is I'd love to do some reflection about how the study together has gone. So we will be doing some breakout discussion groups and coming with some discussion questions and coming back, all meant to kind of be thinking about how practice went and also with an eye towards the future of how we carry this practice forward, even without the structure of coming back together as a group. So that is the big picture. And I wanted to just spend a few minutes talking about the ceremony of Jukai itself and the importance of vow to set the stage for Saturday, for those of you that tune in by Zoom, and what you will be seeing and supporting. So that's where we're headed. I'm looking for the time because I want to make sure that we have time for discussion. So on Saturday, as mentioned, we will have the ceremony of Jukai. And if I haven't already mentioned this, Jukai, the word Jukai means giving and receiving of the precepts. Kai means precept, and Ju means giving and receiving. It's helpful to know that. And this is the public ceremony where people come forward and express their intention to live their lives according to the precepts. And to join the global, worldwide community of Buddhists. And so in this particular ceremony, it's not a commitment to a particular lineage, or a teacher, but it is joining this really lovely, beautiful community of those that hold the intention. I love the phrase, joining the Sangha of the 10 quarters. And the 10 quarters are the 8 points of the compass, so north, south, east, west, north, west, southwest, etc., and then up and down. So to me, that just paints this lovely image of kind of holding hands with the global community of Buddhists and sharing that intention, and it fortifies the vow, fortifies the intention. The ceremony itself will be quite familiar because it is just a little bit of an expanded version with some extra dedications and things of the Kyojukaimon itself. So what we've been reading as a daily practice and what we're just read on Wednesday. And there'll be a point at which each of the 16 of the precepts is read, and the community and those who are taking the precepts in the ceremony for the first time will be asked, will you keep this precept or not? So this is a time where those of us who have done this ceremony and made this vow are renewing our vows, and those coming forward are making that declaration of their intention for the first time. So it's both an initiation kind of ceremony, but also a recommitment ceremony, and quite important to do. And so it's nice to share that as a community together. Here's the show and tell portion of my talk this evening. So I'm going to attempt to show and tell, and it may help to change to speaker view in the upper right so that I become big rather than the Brady Bunch view, so that you can see what I'm showing you. So at the ceremony, one thing that's given that I don't have handy is a wagesa. I'm looking around the room to see if anybody's got a wagesa on. I don't think so. So that the wagesa is the kind of the straps of the Joshin's going to go get one, is the straps of the Roxu, and it has a fancy knot that keeps together. Oh, I think she's got one. Look, you can click, you can make her big, you can make Joshin big. Thank you, Joshin. And the Wagesa is, thanks, Joshin. The Wagesa is a physical representation of the precepts. So the Wagesa is the straps of the Roxu, and the Roxu is like a miniature Kesa, which is the kind of the Buddha's robes, and that Kesa represents the precepts. And so part of why we have these garments is as a physical reminder of our intention. Just one more way of supporting. Just one more way of supporting and making that vow visible. Like when we come together and practice, we typically wear these things as a way of showing our intention in a physical way and wearing the precepts. So that's one thing that's given, a Wagesa. And that's for those receiving the precepts, that's sewn and given to them. After that, you do your own sewing. For the Roxu and Kesas and everything, you do your own sewing. But this one, it's given to you, which was quite sweet. The other thing that's given is a Kechimiaku. This is the tricky part. So that red seal is the three treasures. Now I'm going to ask Joshin to help me out on that thing that I can never remember what the black is. I can't remember what that is.
I wasn't expecting a test.
That's okay. I know. And I the little pop quiz for both of us. I was like, oh, I can't remember. Oh, find out. I'll keep talking while you're thinking. And then go ahead.
I was wondering if it was, I want to break out my character.
It almost looks like a paw.
Yeah, it might be Moo. I'm not sure.
It's cool. So on this, you see where it says the true precepts of the Bodhisattvas, and then on the back, it has the name of the preceptor, in this case, Gyokoko, who gave the precepts to me, and it has my name on the back, and then her chops, her stamp. It's her signature. And then inside, there's a lineage chart. And so this Kechimiaku, literally Kechimiaku means bloodline. So it's representing the bloodline of the Buddhas, the lineage of which we are all a part. So I'll just show a little bit of this. So each preceptee gets this as well. So you'll see up here, you start with this empty circle, which represents the source, which represents emptiness. And you'll see that everything flows, everything comes out of this emptiness, everything comes out of that which has no words, but is big mind, enlightenment itself, that we are all arising and falling from. So everything emerges from this space. And then you'll see these these lines that come up, and I think it's in red. It is the bloodline, and you'll see that even though it looks sort of like a corner, it's rounded because it represents like the vein. And so you don't want any kinks in the vein. You want that blood freely flowing. So everything's smooth and rounded. And then you see I believe the first seal here, you have Shakyamuni Buddha. So you have emptiness and then Shakyamuni Buddha. And then it flows through all the ancestors in our lineage. And I won't, it's kind of hard to see, but you get an idea. And you see that this bloodline flows through from Shakyamuni all the way down to, it's super tiny. I can't even see it like a person in real life, but you can see where it says Yokiko, and then me. So it's saying new ancestor. Anyway, and then down here it's a little bit clearer where it's telling where I received the precepts and who they were given by and the date. And and then you'll see the very end where my name is, the bloodline flows back up into emptiness. So we are continually connected to that. I love the Kechimiaku and being given that and being reminded of our connection with that, with both lineage and with enlightenment itself, and the tradition that this is just one way of finding our way to that essential truth, but just knowing that deeply. Buddhism and all these ceremonies and all the things that we do, it's simply a path, one of many that point to this essential truth of our nature. What is reassuring and comforting to me is that it's worked for a lot of people. It's not the path for everyone. That's what's so lovely about these expressions of enlightenment and all the paths for different medicine for different karmic ailments. But Buddhism is one path that can point us to who and what we are and what we arise from. And the Kechimiaku just shows that connection that we have with that and through the precepts. So that will be given to the preceptees along with, and this you probably really can't see, along with a certificate. So this hangs in my hallway, and I remember someone saying that these are frameable, and I really like having that physical reminder that I walk by all the time of my intention and helping to support me in that. So that's the end of the show and tell portion. And
Shintai, we also have the women's catchy as well. That's
yes, we do. And I did not receive that back in my day. But now we have updated the tradition. That is the kind of the traditional male lineage, but they'll be given 2 Kechimiakus, and there's the women's lineage. Thank you for that reminder, Joshin. I love also that we include that. So now what I'd like to do is, with any luck at all, I'll send you into breakout rooms. And I have some questions for y'all to reflect on and then come back as a large group to kind of share what came out of your discussions in your group. I was attempting to post the discussion questions in the chat, and it will not do it, I'm telling you. Let me try it one more time. Yeah, nothing. I don't think. So I'm going to tell you the questions. I hope you can remember, and I may be able to send them to your rooms. And I'm also going to try to get the breakout rooms going here. Hang on. Uh-oh. I'm having a moment of panic where I can't even see where it says breakout rooms. Let's see.
You're not host, Shintai.
Okay. If you could turn that over to me, that would be great. So here are the questions while we're fooling around with the controls. The questions are, think about how your home practice went, what worked and what didn't, in terms of the daily reading or regular reading of the Kyoju Kaimon and reflection practice. That's one question. So how home practice went. Or what other daily practices you might have adopted or regular practices and how that went. And then the second question is thinking about the 10 grave precepts, which one jumps out at you as the one that you connected with most this time around, or that you changed your relationship with? If there's one that something has kind of stuck with you. Another way, I'm probably giving too much. You might jot some of these down. You could also think of this in terms of which one is the easiest right now to practice with and which one's the most challenging. So I be thinking of those. And actually, I'm probably just going to leave you where you were for the, yeah, I'm just going to return you back to your breakout rooms where you were. All right. So any questions about the, um, the discussion questions or what we're doing?
How much time will we have?
Oh, that's great. Yes, about 10 minutes, about
Oh.
10 minutes.
Okay.
So I am going to, and if any, you can send someone to the main room from your chat room if there's any problems or questions, and I'll be there. I'm going to pop into the different rooms. So here we go, and we just need to accept. Except Cameo is not assigned. Let me see where you should go. Wait, where'd you go, Cameo? There you are. Send to.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cameo. Oh, All right. So you're all back. Thanks for coming back. I would love to hear a little bit about what came out of your discussions without maybe sharing what somebody else shared, but maybe a general sense of what came out of your discussions about how home practice went, what worked, what maybe didn't work, and what which of the 10 of the grave maybe stood out in some way, or you changed your relationship with it, or any of those things. So I think you're free to unmute yourselves if you'd like to share anything.
Well, I will share that after years of resisting recollection practice, I have found that it's been a very pleasant way to do recollection right before I go to bed so that I can draw the events of the day through my mind as a way of noticing those points of contraction, but also as a way to say, okay, I've looked at this, I can set it aside, and then I don't worry about it at night, and I actually sleep better. I just know I've got, a little bit of a chunk of a time to just go through the day and see what's what and take stock. And then I sleep much easier.
Mm.
I should have been doing this for years.
Nice. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else have any thoughts about how daily practice went? The reading or the reflection?
I don't know. For me, I don't know if it was because we did it so much later this year. Something, I just was not engaged like I usually am with the precepts this year. There was something very different than this year for me. I'm not really sure what, but I definitely did not read every day. I didn't reflect every night. It almost felt, I don't know, I felt very separate from the precept practice this time. And two, I did go through the precepts at Dharma Rain this year when they went through them.
Uh-huh.
And so maybe that had a little bit to do with it. I don't know. I actually don't know, but I just definitely didn't connect like I usually do this year.
Well, thanks for your honesty about that, Joanne. It's not always comfortable to say, you know what, just, yeah, it was different. One of the things I'm making some notes about for when we do it again. And one of the things I noticed that felt really missing is more of a check-in, more of a regular check-in about how the reflection was going and how the reading was going. And I definitely want to include that more next time, because in past years, we've gotten a lot of really nice creative ideas about how to make that work or divide it up or things like that. So I personally was reflecting that felt like I missed that connection a little bit, and I found that helpful personally. What about any of the 10 grade precepts and anything that came out of a connection with any one of those in particular?
Well, for me, still, or somebody else?
Go ahead.
I think that I was really, and it could be actually why I wasn't feeling so connected, was because I was struggling so much with just the political environment, the communication, the how I was communicating, my feelings that were coming up, and really struggling with those. And sometimes when you know that you're not kind of sitting how you're supposed to be sitting in the world, maybe that's why I wasn't connecting as much. Maybe there was some avoidance of, if I'm really practicing with those precepts, then there's going to be a lot more accountability for how I'm feeling right now. And so maybe that was it. I don't know.
Well, and that you illustrate a good point where, the precepts begin with contrition, and it does come back to being like honest about how we're dealing with it. And then, just being really kind with ourselves and then moving forward. I think we are in particularly challenging times on many levels. And you really, Sean, you bring a great point, because there can be a subtle way where it's just like, I just don't want to really look at that. And it just doesn't feel that great. For me, what I've noticed is I can feel that little piece of resistance. And then when I do turn towards it, it's just kind of, it's just really never what I expect. Like there's this habit of mine that it's just going to be like beating myself up with it, and then I'm just reminded, oh, I'm okay. This is okay. I can move forward. I can work with this. I can trust myself, and I can trust my Buddha nature to be able to do this. But sometimes it takes a while to drop through, and there's just this little bit of resistance. And there's a lot of, like, for me, just a lot of um, just habit energy around, just like, I don't want to beat myself up with this, and not wanting to look, and then being able to look. I don't know if anybody else relates to that at all, but anybody else have any thoughts about any of the 10 of the grave, or how it's been going?
One thing that came up for me a lot, and it relates to, I really enjoyed everybody's presentations. For me, that was really a cool thing about how we did it this year. I so enjoyed hearing. I thought everybody was interesting, and gave the personal slants on each of them, really opened up many of the precepts for me. And I think that for the first time, what was really clear to me was how each of the precepts was saying the same thing through everybody's different stories and through their descriptions. It was like hearing the same precept over and over. And it was very cool that way.
I had kind of a similar experience. Even I didn't mention this in our breakout room, but I did. We were talking about our presentations, and I focused in on the anger one because that was my presentation, which we kind of agreed in our group. It was really helpful to focus in on the one precept for a long time, just to kind of really dig deep. But one thing that I did notice for myself personally during this was, as we were reading through the precepts, and each week, this idea, I really kind of focused in on this idea of the emptiness part of it. Like in each of the precepts, there's always this, like, for example, in the realm of the unattainable Dharma, there's always this realm of the Dharma in each of the precepts that I just kind of found fascinating this time. And so I kind of, that was sort of like my meditation, I guess, as we were going through this. I still think it's interesting, actually. I probably will still think about it for a while.
Yeah, turning us towards the absolute in all of this. That's a really important aspect of the study, and the commentary under each of the 10 grave, illuminating an aspect of that, which kind of ties to what Teiko was saying. It's like, it's really the same precept again and again and again, being expressed in different ways. Thanks for bringing that up. Anybody else have anything that they want to share? I do have one other discussion question that we may or may not get to. My mindfulness practice on Zoom is to allow space for people to think about whether they want to respond or not. It's always a little, and allowing it to feel a little awkward. Well, let me share. I see, and then I just started talking immediately. So let me just look around. Any last call on these two topics, just about home practice, or any connections you made with the 10 grave, or any comment at all, actually, about how this went? The disadvantage of being in breakout rooms when we're not little small groups when we're not physically together is when we were all at Wy'East, I could just sort of hear what everybody else was saying, and then I could kind of just sort of nudge and go, I heard this great comment. When I beam into a room, it's kind of awkward, and I can't beam into everybody's rooms. My last question is thinking about future beings, future students of the Dharma who take precept classes in the future. What advice would you give them in terms of engaging this practice? Like what would you suggest that they do, or what helped, or just any suggestions at all to future trainees? And I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And it's going to write it here. Here's my, so I don't know if you can see that. I was actually going to type. So please feel free to unmute yourselves. I can't see as many of you this way. Oops, I'm scrolling the wrong direction. So any advice, any thoughts?
So I had this feeling when the first time I read this sort of closing phrase about to do something for ourselves without copying others is to become an example to the world. And the merit of this, I can't read it because it's dark, but anyway, what it reminded me was something very similar in Alcoholics Anonymous, is that you have to do it yourself. This idea that once you determine that you want this, then there's nothing that can keep it from you. And I think it's very much the same thing, although there's great community and sanghas and all that kind of stuff. Ultimately, I have to decide that I want this, and I have to find it myself. That's the thought that came to me about the practice in reading that phrase.
I tried to summarize what you said, but that's great. Like it's that comes up again and again in different ways of like, you do your own practice, like you have the tools, but really no one can do it for you. But I like how you said first, like once you are determined, there's no stopping you.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that comes up for me is just reflecting on why you actually are doing it. Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it for the world? Do you have to do it for yourself before the world? I guess just really peeling back the layers and really digging deep. Why are you wanting to take the precepts? You know, yeah, I think that especially if you come from another background with like the 10 Commandments, and I think there's just a lot to think about it, because these are not these rigid rules like with the 10 Commandments. And I just think there needs to be a lot of reflection. I'm not sure how you want to word that, but
Yeah.
My comment also is that it really benefited me to dig deeply into one. So I guess my suggestion would be, if everybody did at least one and we rotated through, you know, that everybody did different ones at different years, then, you know, in 10 years we'd be, if you always do the first 3 and then we do the other 10. But I mean, I think it just really benefits to really focus in. And it sounded like, Monica, you got the same thing from really focusing in on the anger. I mean, to just really do one really helped me.
I'm writing that down. Like, helps to dig into one of the 10 great precepts. It helps to focus in on one of the precepts and do it as completely as possible.
Right.
That kind of relates to, it's kind of said that when you penetrate one of the precepts completely, you penetrate them all. So like one way to do that is to really focus in on one, and then the rest flow from there. So that's great.
I think I would advise, I'm sorry, did
Go
I
ahead.
interrupt you? If is the question, how would you, advise somebody who was studying the precepts for the first time? Was that?
Yeah, like if someone said, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing the precept class. How can I get the most out of it?"
Yeah, I think I would suggest being gentle to yourself and being kind, because many of us have come from a very kind of like punitive religious background. Not me, but I know that a lot of people do. And so, yeah, nobody's perfect. I think it's important to just just be kind to yourself as you go through these.
That's great advice, because it's easy, especially on a surface read, to kind of misinterpret sometimes. Yeah. Well, it looks like we are at time. I apologize. We're actually a minute over. Let me stop the share. Okay, that was kind of fun. So thank you all for a really rich class discussion series. Thanks for everybody who prepared. The presentations were just fantastic. And it's so important and enriching to hear other people's expression. And that's really what the part of what our work is about, is being able to express our own truth, our own relationship in the way that only you can do. And that's what's so exciting to hear, is to hear only what each of the people brought forward. That's something only you can share from your perspective. And that is just great. So on that note, I will say the closing verse, and thanks again, everyone. It's just a great series. So please make a show. Abiding in this ephemeral world, like a lotus in muddy water, the mind is pure and goes beyond. Thus we bow to Buddha, all Buddhas throughout space and time, all honored ones, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, wisdom beyond wisdom, maha prajna. Thanks again, everyone, and feel free to unmute yourself to say good night. And see you on Saturday.